Have you ever watched someone get publicly humiliated, only to discover they owned the future of everyone laughing at them? Imagine walking into your dream job, keeping your identity secret, and being thrown out before your first coffee break. But what nobody knew was that, before the clock struck 9, the same woman they mocked would hold the power to change every career in the building. Stay until the end, because this isn't just a story about revenge. It's about the price of arrogance. Emma Carter stepped into Titan Dynamics carrying a weathered leather briefcase that had once belonged to her late mother. She wore simple business clothes, avoided eye contact, and introduced herself as nothing more than a temporary operations analyst. Her father, Daniel Carter, watched quietly from his aging pickup across the street. Before she left the truck, he reminded her of one rule. Today, you're just another employee. Earn your opinion before you reveal your name. Emma smiled, nodded, and walked through the revolving doors, unaware that her first day would expose secrets far bigger than anyone inside the company could imagine. The lobby looked flawless. Gleaming marble floors, polished glass walls, and employees moving with rehearsed precision. Yet beneath the luxury, Emma sensed something wasn't right. Conversations stopped whenever a senior executive walked by, and even simple questions were answered in whispers. It didn't feel like a successful company. It felt like a place where people had learned to stay silent. Just before noon, a nervous supervisor named Marcus handed Emma a shipment file worth millions of pounds and casually asked her to verify the paperwork. Most new hires would have signed it without a second glance. Emma didn't. Within minutes, she spotted something strange. 2 inspection records for the same shipment carried different approval dates, and one digital signature appeared to have been added after the cargo had already been cleared. It wasn't a harmless typo. It looked like someone had quietly altered an official safety record. When Emma pointed it out, Marcus's face drained of color. Instead of thanking her, he glanced toward the executive floor and whispered, "If you want to keep this job, forget you ever saw that." Emma closed the file slowly. "If this shipment isn't safe," she replied calmly. "Pretending not to see it won't protect anyone." Marcus begged Emma to leave the paperwork alone, but she refused to ignore what she had found. Instead, she requested that the shipment be paused until an independent inspection could confirm everything was legitimate. That single request spread through the building faster than any office rumor. Less than 15 minutes later, the glass doors swung open. Chief Executive Officer Victoria Hayes entered with 2 senior executives at her side. The conversations in the lobby instantly stopped. Without greeting Emma, Victoria picked up the documents, skimmed them for a few seconds, then looked at her with open irritation. "So," she said coldly, "our newest temporary employee thinks she understands this company better than people who've run it for years?" Emma stayed calm. "I'm only asking for a second inspection. If the paperwork is correct, there'll be nothing to worry about." Before Victoria could answer, her cousin Ethan Hayes, who managed the supplier responsible for the shipment, interrupted. He insisted the records were perfectly normal and accused Emma of wasting everyone's time. Victoria didn't even review the evidence. She tore Emma's temporary ID badge from its lanyard, dropped it onto the marble floor, and announced loud enough for the entire lobby to hear, "You're finished here. Security, escort her out immediately." Dozens of employees watched in complete silence, convinced they had just witnessed the end of a young woman's career. None of them realized the biggest surprise of the day was still only minutes away. Emma walked toward the exit with her head held high. She never argued, never begged, and never revealed who she really was. Just before stepping outside, she glanced at the large clock above reception. 8:56 a.m. A faint smile crossed her face. Instead of leaving the property, she turned toward a private lift hidden behind frosted glass. A security guard rushed to stop her. "That lift is reserved for board members only." Before Emma could respond, the chairwoman of the board, Margaret Bennett, appeared from the corridor. "Let her through," she said calmly. "We've been expecting her." The guard froze, quickly stepped aside, and opened the lift doors. Meanwhile, Victoria and Ethan were still congratulating themselves. They believed they had eliminated a troublesome employee before she could create problems. Neither of them realized the emergency board meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. had only one agenda item. As the boardroom doors opened, every director stood up at once. The room fell completely silent. Margaret smiled respectfully before speaking the words that drained every drop of color from Victoria's face. "Good morning, Ms. Carter. Welcome home." At that exact moment, the screen behind the board displayed an official legal notice confirming that Emma Carter had become the majority shareholder of Titan Dynamics at midnight. The woman who had been fired less than 10 minutes earlier was now the company's true owner. Nobody in the boardroom spoke. Victoria stared at Emma in disbelief, convinced the entire morning had been an elaborate trap. But Emma calmly explained that no one had forced her to work undercover. It had been her own decision. She wanted to experience the company exactly as every ordinary employee did, without privilege, without influence, and without anyone treating her differently because of her surname. Several directors expected Emma to fire Victoria on the spot. She didn't. Instead, Emma slid the disputed shipment file onto the table. "My first order," she said, "is a complete independent audit of this shipment and every contract connected to its supplier." She then gave Victoria 72 hours to explain the altered records and every payment linked to the supplier. The room filled with murmurs. Some directors believed Emma was being too merciful. Others realized she was doing something far more dangerous, giving the truth enough time to expose itself. As the meeting ended, the company's chief financial officer quietly approached Emma and handed her a sealed folder. "I've kept these hidden for years," he whispered. "I was waiting for someone who'd actually do something with them." Emma opened the folder just enough to see unexplained payments, hidden invoices, and confidential authorizations carrying familiar signatures. She realized the falsified shipment was only the first thread. Pulling it might unravel an entire empire built on carefully buried secrets. That evening, Emma met her father at a quiet roadside cafe instead of celebrating in a luxury restaurant. She placed the confidential folder on the table. "Did you know it was this bad?" she asked. Daniel remained silent for a moment before nodding. "Years ago, I warned the company about the same supplier," he admitted. "The report disappeared, and so did my career." He then unlocked the old leather briefcase Emma had carried all day. Hidden beneath a false compartment were her late mother's handwritten journals, filled with supplier names, inspection notes, and unfinished investigations. One name appeared again and again: Orion Industrial Group. It wasn't the supplier currently under investigation, but the company that secretly controlled it. Emma suddenly understood the fraud wasn't the work of one dishonest executive. It had been carefully hidden through a network of shell companies for years. The next morning, before Emma could act, major news outlets published articles calling her an inexperienced heiress whose reckless decisions were putting thousands of jobs at risk. The company's share price began to fall, and several board members started questioning her leadership. Someone wasn't just protecting the corruption. They were trying to destroy Emma's reputation before she could expose the people truly pulling the strings. Instead of answering the media, Emma focused on gathering evidence. An independent forensic audit was launched, and every server containing financial and inspection records was locked before anyone could erase another file. The decision came just in time. Overnight, the IT department detected thousands of documents being deleted remotely. Fortunately, the backup system captured almost everything. The recovered files exposed a disturbing pattern: inflated invoices, duplicate safety certificates, and payments routed through consulting firms that existed only on paper. Every trail pointed toward Orion Industrial Group, but one question remained unanswered: who inside Titan Dynamics had authorized it all? Then came the breakthrough. The chief financial officer placed a small encrypted flash drive on the boardroom table. Inside was a private recording from 3 years earlier. On the audio, Victoria could clearly be heard dismissing warnings about suspicious supplier payments, insisting that deadlines mattered more than delays caused by another inspection. The room fell silent. Victoria closed her eyes before finally speaking. "I never took a penny," she admitted quietly, "but I ignored the warnings. And that decision allowed the corruption to grow." For the first time, the board understood the truth. This wasn't just a story about greed. It was about one compromise that slowly became years of silence, and nearly destroyed everything the company had been built to protect. After hours of debate, the board held its final vote. By a clear majority, Victoria was removed as chief executive officer pending the outcome of the investigation. She didn't argue. She quietly handed over her access card and looked at Emma one last time. "I underestimated you," she admitted. "Not because you inherited this company, but because I judged you before I knew who you were." Emma replied calmly, "You didn't underestimate me. You underestimated every employee who believed honesty mattered." Instead of becoming CEO immediately, Emma surprised everyone once again. "I own this company," she said, "but ownership doesn't automatically make someone the best leader." She appointed an experienced independent executive to run day-to-day operations while she led a new ethics and safety committee. Anonymous reporting systems were introduced. Inspection records could no longer be altered without multiple approvals, and employees were finally encouraged to speak up without fear of losing their jobs. Months later, Emma left the headquarters beside her father. A luxury company car waited nearby, but she walked straight past it and climbed into his old pickup truck instead. As Daniel started the engine, he smiled. "So, how was your first day at work?" Emma laughed softly. "I got fired before 9, became the owner before breakfast, and learned that real leadership isn't about power. It's about protecting the people who have none. Because the strongest leaders aren't the ones who demand respect. They're the ones who earn it."